Welcome to the Consulting Leaders Podcast, where we talk about the business of consulting. Whether you're looking to grow your practice or learn from the stories of leaders in consulting, you're in the right place. I'm your host, Guillaume Jouvencel, ex-PwC and co-founder of GHA Marketing. Join me as I interview the best consultants in their niche. Let's get on with the show. Jess, welcome to Consulting Leaders. Happy to have you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm glad to be here.
It is my pleasure. Let's jump straight into it. What got you into this fantastic place that is consulting and especially building Helia Collective? Jess?
I actually came to this work. I spent my career sort of growing and scaling social ventures. So like on the ground doing the work. And about a year and a half ago, I sort of had this moment where I was like, I no longer want to be in charge. I want to help. And started thinking about sort of how and where to do that, and jumped in to help a few different organizations, and really thought about what did I need and what did I want when I was building and growing things. Like I was part of the core team growing Rev Foods from 14 million to 170 million. And the amount of things I needed help with in that was high. And I built Think of Us from like 700,000 to 15 million in 4 years. And again, I kept sort of looking for the kind of help that I needed. And then I thought, well, I'll just make it myself. So we started the Helia Collective about a year and a half ago to sort of do that. Because I think at the core, I don't think the work needs to be as hard as it is. And so I sort of think about how and where can we make it easier.
So making it easier makes sense. What would you say is the core problem that you help people solve? Like what is it that you're helping them achieve exactly?
Yeah, I think there's a couple things. I think one of which is we spend a lot of time in the social sector. And I define the social sector as anyone trying to make the world a place we want to live in. So that can range from startups to creatives to nonprofits to kind of foundations, anything on that end. And I think we spend a lot of time talking about ideas and talking points and pitches. And we don't spend a lot of time talking about the how. Like, how do you actually get stuff done? And this infrastructure exists in other places where there's a lot of money to be made. So you can look at things like the First Round Review or Lenny's newsletter, and they go deep. But it doesn't exist on the other side. I think second, it's a field in which, in some ways you think it would be really collaborative because funding often is tighter in this space. It actually creates a lot of quote unquote competition. And so people are often operating in like very specific silos or within only the networks that they know. And often the only way kind of through that is through very large kind of established consulting firms that work both for the funders and the field. So it's a little bit complicated in that. And so I wanted to make the how accessible. So like how, hiring and firing, what does that look like? How do you do that? How do you do that really well? Right? Fundraising, kind of what does that look like? How are you kind of driving that? Sales, what does that look like? And so that people in earlier stages of their career or ones that were just sort of taking on certain aspects kind of had that. I would say the second piece to make it easier is we all know, we've all been in those moments where you're like, I just need someone that can help. And it's like, where do you call? Where can you get vetted humans? Where can you get the things? And Helia is a place you can trust. And so we sort of create these resources, we build in-person groups, and then we also have built a collective, all of whom are doers, all of whom have been on the ground doing the work and are now in a stage of their career where they want to help.
So the doers, that would make sense. Do you have a specific industry, vertical, niche? I mean, you've been, on the floor doing it yourself. Is there a specific type of organization that you help now? Like how do you decide who you work with, should I say?
Yeah. So again, we work with the social sector and we define it really broadly with anyone that's trying to like build a world that we want to live in. And so our clients currently range from anyone from a technology startup that automates permitting for solar panels. And they're in probably 400 jurisdictions around the United States at this point, to a group called Tech Talent that is basically supports in governments in their technology use. So across the aisle, across the space, they do everything. So like they most recently have been in a number of states getting in with the Medicaid changes, making sure that they have the supports. They recently placed someone in Boston who saved money from, I believe that once he was placed, they were able to cancel a contract from $90,000 to do it in $900,000 to do it in-house for $50,000. So how does government run more effectively with technology? To really small organizations, like we work with a startup that's trying to change what film distribution looks like. And so they partner with filmmakers, and they actually have their first film launching in a couple weeks, to a really amazing local organization in Northeast LA that does community-owned housing. So it's kind of a wide range. I would say we're best for sort of 0 to 70 million. We're not sort of a good fit for a $200 million org. And anyone that is looking for doers and sort of in a building moment, I think also if you're trying to optimize your accounting structures, but everything else is pretty fine-tuned. But anyone that's sort of growing, anyone that is shrinking, anyone that's trying to kind of navigate a changing landscape, which I think we all are to some extent. Yeah. And then we let people kind of self-select themselves in. I will note that we only work with people we like. And so that has been really fun, and we're pretty good at sussing that out early on. But if not, we just sort of transfer them off to someone else, and that works well. But it's such a joy to work with people where it's like, oh yeah, we like each other. We want to work together, you know?
So transferring them to someone else. Is that not a bit of a, I don't know how to say it in English, a poisoned gift then? If you don't want to work with them, you're like, hey, but you will get super well along with this other person. Hey, other person, here is someone we don't want to work with personally, so here you go. How does that work?
I think as long as I'm very honest, I just sort of express. But I also think sometimes people just like different things, you know? Some people want stuff where, like, we're never going to send you a 60 slide PowerPoint PDF, right? I just don't find that helpful. I never wanted those. But some groups that we work with want that. They're like, actually, we need this because we're going to kind of go in that landscape and we're going to do it. And that's great. Let me find you someone who loves to make you a 60 slide deck. I'll make you a deck, but I'm going to make you a deck that's like, here's the very specific pitch deck that you need. And here's this. I'm not going to do the like landscape analysis thing. But yes, I'm very honest about sort of what that looks like, because I think there's someone for everyone. So let's find the right fit. You know, if we're not it, that's okay. We'll find you someone who is.
So back to who you're typically helping. So there are multiple profiles, I feel. And there is also like we let the people self-select, but ultimately we will select as well based on the ones we want to work with versus the ones we don't. How do you, one being that broad, how do you market, Jess? How do you brand? How do you get, I'm not talking about deals yet, but really like, how do you, put the word out there so that people come and knock on the door being like, hey, Jess, like you might be able to help. How does that work for you guys?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think we are still figuring out all the ways that we want to do it. But what we're doing right now is that first and foremost, Helia started a library almost a year ago now. And so we interview folks, both those in our collective that will do the work as well as others. And we sort of write up and share their wisdom. And it's very focused on how and kind of what that looks like. We build toolkits with them. And so that we've built up a mailing list around. So we have about 1,200 folks now. And we haven't tried that hard. So I think we'll do an official launch next month. We send that every other week. And we get like 65% open rates. So it's like really an engaged group that we're building. And so we definitely get clients through there. So they're hearing and seeing who in our collective might be interesting, kind of how we engage. We also have built a really strong word of mouth. So almost all of our clients sort of stay and or referring others. And so we're building that pipeline. We also, we have a pretty strong referral network in both, not just kind of current clients and those pieces, but also a number of funders. So a number of both for-profit and nonprofit funders send folks over. Sometimes they're even paying for the work to be done with us, depending on kind of what that looks like. So that's been a really strong channel. And finally, we definitely do a little bit of LinkedIn. I have not kind of cracked that code or spent enough time there. We have not closed many deals from that. I think we'll continue to engage. My instinct is most people that are coming there are subscribing to the newsletter and then sort of flowing in at a later time.
That's super interesting. So thanks for sharing this. If you don't mind us going there a bit, how are you thinking about it? Because obviously LinkedIn is a nut that I think 120% of B2B coaches and consultants are trained to crack. So interested in understanding how you're thinking about it, what you've tried, what seems to be working, what you're going to double down on. So the newsletter is something that attracts people in the first place. What's kind of the process, in your opinion, to get them to then be like, hey, we might be interested into what you can help us with? How do you
Yeah,
think?
definitely. Yeah, I think at this point, and maybe forever, I'm really focused on just sort of building trust. It's like we are here to kind of offer and be of service to this space. My instinct is that, 90% of our newsletter subscribers will never buy anything from Helia. And that's beautiful. Like, I want to do this as an offering. Like, this is a way that we're sort of sharing in the space. But for the 10% that are, we sort of look at it as a social contract. Like, I want all of that to always be free. And so it's a social contract of like, read this, use it. If it's helpful, share it, right? Like, help us grow kind of who's in this space. And if and when you need help, hire from our Helia collective. We have over 30 folks now. And when you need someone, I'll find them, right? Like, kind of in that space. And so I think we'll definitely continue to engage there. And as long as we're doing things that feel helpful, right? Like, I always think to myself, like, would this be helpful to someone? Would this have been helpful to me, someone I know at some point in time? And do I like doing it? And if those two answers are yes, then it's, let's kind of move that out in the world. And as of now, it's working, right? I think at some point in time, again, the LinkedIn nut, as you said, I post things that I like that feel like me, right? I'm like, oh, I like that we did this article. I'm going to write this. I don't know that it's strategic enough yet. I don't know that it's targeted enough yet. But when I played around a little bit with that, it's kind of taken the joy out of it. And it hasn't worked exponentially well. So I feel like for now, we're not going to focus there, but we'll keep playing. I will say, I think we are starting to think about what are ways that we can start marketing the newsletter more effectively. We haven't done much. Like, we've just, posted some LinkedIn, added a few folks here and there. And so obviously in, 11 months, we've built 1,200 folks. So it's building, but we want to do more. So we're starting to look at, can we put together a series of the resources we've created? So can we do a hiring and firing series? Can we do a fundraising series? Can we do a merger and acquisition or closure series for those that are sort of in that space? And starting to think about what sort of like guerrilla marketing we might want to do around those that are really like topic specific and in different places. But I'm always looking to learn from other people's ideas there.
Thanks a lot for sharing this. Just really appreciate it. So we've with LinkedIn as well, with some results. We work with a few people who make it work. So I'm going to share this. Hopefully, it will be like helpful for the audience. I think people underestimate how much time it takes to actually get engagement on your post. It's not just about coming up with great content anymore. That's important, but LinkedIn is really a platform where you need to network. That's their positioning. So you need to engage with other people's posts. Ideally, you want to select people within your niche so that the comments that you leave on their post make sense to their audience as well, and then they can spot you as well. Like, interesting. Yeah. And as you do that regularly, we're talking like multiple times a week, if not per day, those people start engaging with your post as well. And now you have people from your industry commenting on your post, your newsletter, your different pieces of content, which gives it to their network, and that's how you kind of grow. That said, unfortunately, from experience, this is only half the work. The other half is to go into people's DM in a non-pushy, non-salesy way. Nobody likes to receive a salesy DM. Everybody is trying to automate, and we know of one person who is doing none of that, 100% manual, and he gets crazy good results. But it's checking who is engaging with your posts, who is checking your profile, who is following you as a result of seeing a post, or even better, who asks to connect with you directly. And then it's going into those people's DM and being like, hey, thank you so much for the support on XYZ post. Hey, mind if I ask why you engaged with that particular piece of content? And you trigger a conversation like this. So like everything, building trust is the right thing. And so for everybody listening to us, I think, Jess, you're doing it right here. But then it's really, how do we get people to engage after that LinkedIn activity, which is what takes the most time and the most skills, obviously.
I will just double click on that. And I think the one thing that I'll say is that for me, as someone who's like spent my career driving revenue and sales and like every possible space, that's how you do it, right? It's like you build a pipeline and it's one-on-one and it takes that time and engagement. We at Helia have not done it that much through LinkedIn yet, But that is absolutely what we're doing outside of the world, which is why we have funders that are supporting us. It's why we have this big referral network. It's kind of how we built that space. It's why when someone, opens a number of our newsletters, I send them a personal email, right? And I'm like, hey, tell me about this. What are you excited about? What are you not? If they're, we invite them to do a UX interview, right? Like we build a relationship because I think, we don't automate anything because I don't think that it's helpful. I think that personal, I want to build trust, right? And so do I use things on the back end to help me like see stats and understand information? Yeah, absolutely. But all of our communication is one-on-one. Like my CRM is like my most favorite thing I've ever had, right? Like it's like I actually find one that I love Copper. It like actually works.
Here we go.
There we go. I mean, and I've used a lot. But yeah, that one-on-one touch points and those engagements and those relationships you build, I mean, it's the foundation, right?
Amen to that. And in the day and age of AI, this is even more important whether we like it or not. So if you can, Jess, talk to me a little bit about sales then. I mean, you've driven sales department for many organizations and many industries. For Helia specifically, how do you move from this interest, this reach from the newsletters or the other channels that you mentioned, referrals, obviously, how do you move from that to a conversation, a sales conversation, an SOW, a letter of engagement, we rock and roll? What does it look like for you guys?
Yeah, I will note that we have been wildly lucky in how fast things are moving and how quickly we close. So that will not continue to be the case. But I think at the state we are, we've closed probably 80 deals and they've all been pretty fast and close. As when we get to the hundreds and thousands, it will not look quite the same. So I just want to acknowledge that. But I think with the foundation of trust that we have at this point with our current kind of network, it moves pretty quickly. And so generally, we kind of get an outreach or an introduction or something along those lines. I send a personal email. We schedule time to talk. Depending on what they're interested in, I might invite one of our collective members to join that conversation. So they're talking with both of us from the beginning. But if I'm not sure, it'll just be me. We have a conversation. I absolutely am transcribing that conversation to help with the, in terms of automation, automating the proposal, writing those things. But really line up. I always ask kind of, what's someone's budget. We have pretty established both hourly and retainer rates that I'm able to sort of align, but they're also very flexible for different stages, So if you're a $400,000 organization, we can help you in the same way we can help a $60 million. So we kind of align on all those. I get folks a proposal, and we close about 90% in that process, which is wild. But again, I think that we've built trust, right? Like we have a really strong, like when people are coming to us for referral, it's a validating referral process. And we get about 2 to 3 leads a week at this point. And then our current clients are sometimes adding new things on kind of as they're going. So we're closing pretty rapidly. I send the proposal over. The proposals are pretty straightforward. I absolutely use AI to help write the proposals. We have our standard. I write obviously the opening letter. I'm validating all the different pieces. If there's a completely new thing, but otherwise it's a pretty streamlined back-end process to get them kind of what that looks like. And then we sign a pretty simple agreement. We do a 10% deposit down and kind of get going. So we've been really lucky that that's been pretty straightforward. I will say the place we have not been straightforward or we have not had the same level of success is in kind of big public RFPs. So we've only submitted about 4 of those, all of which we knew the organizations, maybe didn't know them personally or super well, but we knew them and we were really excited about the work and had connections in. And we have not won one of those. And so I imagine, I'll keep doing them on a selective basis. I feel really good about the proposal we put in. We've made it to the interview process in all but one. But yeah, we haven't been selected yet. So I'm not sure. We're still learning, I guess is what I'll go. But yeah, it's been pretty straightforward. I will note we absolutely run a very tight pipeline. So as I mentioned, I use Copper. Every single thing we have is in Copper. We have a very tight pipeline. I have dedicated time every week where I am looking at, if I haven't heard back from someone, what is the check-in point? If I get an email, one of our clients emailed this beautiful email, I think last week, and said, the only reason I was able to take this vacation is because of you. I haven't taken a vacation in years. When I came back, my team said that what they were most proud of in the quarter is that I had left and trusted you all because I'd never trusted anyone before. And I just thought, And I then used that and sent that off to a few people that were sort of in the proposal standpoint and just said, hey, here's this beautiful thing. So we're sort of actively engaging, right? It's not quite a like, every minute it's just checking. But yeah, I think as long as you have the tight pipeline, as long as you're there and you're in those relationships with people, it moves.
Okay, you are not making my job any easier, Jess, because I need to double down on a few things you mentioned here because this was gold. So if you are an entrepreneurial consultant or B2B coach, CRM is not an option anymore because you want to track exactly where people are in the pipeline. And it can be very simple. It can be the free version of HubSpot. We mentioned Copar, so I'm just mentioning another, but there are plenty out there that will just allow you to understand where are people in. And obviously, high-ticket professional services is mainly about relationships and trust. So it's not like, hey, moved from, opening the first email to responded to a DM on LinkedIn. It's like, where are we at in the relationship building that leads to a proper sales conversation? Email nurture. I actually had a conversation around this with potential future clients. It feels, I'm afraid to feel a bit too pushy. As long as it is ultra relevant for your specific ICP and the person you're having a discussion with, and the case study, for instance, or the industry insights are relevant for them, as long as it's not 16 emails a day, this will actually help both ways. They will get more info, they will see proof that you do and deliver on what you say you do and deliver, but also might just educate them overall. So win-win, as long as it's done properly. A question I want to ask you just specifically is, so 90% close rate is wild. When it's mainly word of mouth and referral, that makes sense because trust is built by proxy, but it's still amazing. So congrats on this. Can you break down for us what you think leads to such a rapid close? Because that's something I know a lot of, especially boutique consulting and coaching firms, struggle with, very long sales cycles. So how do you explain the fact that you do it much faster?
Yeah. I think honestly, again, because it's word of mouth and referral, when folks are coming to us, they already need something, right? And so part of why we, decided on a newsletter engagement strategy is there's no way we're going to keep up with everyone, but it was like, how can we offer value to the world? And how could we have something you love getting in your inbox? It feels personal. It feels like there's a relationship, there's a story, and there's something of value. And so, but the likelihood of that striking at the right moment and the right time is so small. Right. So it's more like, I think of Helia. So when I do need something, I come. So I think the vast majority of folks that are coming to us are already kind of in a state of need, right? They're like ready, they're in growth, they're in change, they're planning for something that's about to start. So I think that makes a huge difference. I think the second piece is we're wildly affordable and it's very intentional, right? Like we're certainly covering our costs. We're certainly kind of charging, but I could probably charge $500 to $700 an hour in different spaces, right? Like I certainly could. But I charge $250 to $300 because that is plenty to kind of bring in for us to be driving and building our business. And I have teams that sort of range from down to $75 an hour. So while the majority of work is sort of on my end, we can also work with some much smaller organizations in a different way where my colleague Natalie might lead, where she's like $150 to $200 an hour. And so we sort of mix and match. But it's very intentional because, again, we're trying to sort of support a social sector. And so it's like, how do we do this in a way that shows up for them and makes things possible? I would say the final piece is I just make it so easy. I'm so amazed sometimes when I talk to folks and it's like, well, here they need to do this and we have this onboarding and it's structured this way. What I needed when I was growing organizations and building things and running teams, I needed someone who was just like, got it, I'm here. Like, let me know how to help. Like maybe create a little bit of like, hold me in that process, but make it easy. Like you're here to help me. And so, our show up is great. Like, we'll jump into your pipeline meeting next week. We'll just start listening. Like, if you want to have a kickoff, great. We'll have a kickoff, however you want to run it. But we are in the work from like the beginning. And so, my colleague, Andrea, she's in Asanas, like building someone's pipeline and like creating the tasks and opportunities for them. And she ran a huge organization for years, but it's like, let's be doers. Right. And so I think that very easy onboarding, that very like flexible work that we do, it makes it easy to say yes. So when you need help and someone's like, I got you, I'm here, I've done this before. I'm like, I'm going to price this in a very affordable where the value we're providing is exponentially more than kind of what's happening. Right. And great, like send us some things or don't. We'll add them in the first meeting. Like we've got you. And I understand why there's a tight structure. I understand when people have a very specific kind of plan and process. And I will just note, I don't think those people come to Helia, or those are where we'll share them with others, right? Because there's an entrepreneurial jump in with you, and we will create a very structured process over time. And both add value, but one is harder to say yes to, I think.
And that does make a lot of sense. Talk to me about retention, Jess. Like, consulting practices grow when obviously there is an acquisition channel that is reliable. Referral is always a big part of this because that's the nature of the biz, right? We do a good job, people do bother and refer to someone who comes to them with like, hey, I have this problem. I know who you need to talk to. But then it's also enabling some acquisition channels that give you some consistent leads. That said, that's only the first phase. The second phase is retention. How do you think about that? How do you make it happen? What does retention look like for you guys?
Yeah. So far, retention has been really strong. Almost every organization that we have worked with has either continued for additional months from the engagement or come back at some point in time. So not all, but most. I look at this again as sort of how are we building trust and adding value? And so if we're building trust and adding value and wanting to do it in a way that supports the organization. And so I'll give an example. Actually, one of our clients recently, Free World, when we'd finished our engagement, he said, the thing I loved most about you is you never tried to keep getting money from me. Like you were always like, how do we add value? What does it look like? And he's like, I've never had that with a consultant. He's like, it was like, you were just there for us. And he's now referred 4 or 5 clients to us, so that engagement ended, but I'm confident he would call again, and he keeps sending folks our way. We've had others where the initial engagement ended and now they need a different kind of help and they're calling us to find that person because it went well. We have others that have changed the scope, some that have gone up. Like we work with one group that started at about a $5,000 a month retainer. I think we're easily running at a $20,000 to $25,000 a month retainer at this point. And they actually quoted to me the other day, they said, I love paying you every month because it's just like, it feels so good. So we have those. We also have ones that we started at like probably a $7,000 a month retainer. We're now at $1,500 because we're just sort of embedded, right? And it's easy for us to do the work. So I don't know that I have a quote unquote strategy other than we build really good relationships and we add value. And we're always trying to put what they need at the front end. Like I think our dedication to the social sector is like, let's build a role we want to live in. We're only working with people that are doing something cool to do that. And we want to make that possible. And sometimes that's us staying around and supporting and being flexible in what that looks like. And sometimes that's let's finish this up and like tee you up and like be in the wings if you ever need help.
Building trust all the way, it seems.
Building trust.
Jess, I like your vibe, obviously, as you might have noticed. So I'm gonna throw a little bit of a curveball question at you now.
Bring it.
What's your number one challenge right now? What's that one nut that you're trying to crack that once you crack, you're gonna take the whole thing to the next level? What would that be for you?
Yeah, I'm gonna answer with 2, which is not quite, but I'm gonna do a curveball answer.
It's my birthday.
There you go. The first one is I'm trying to figure out how to get subscribers in a way that is fun and feels very like us. And so it's growing and I want to go big. And so we're planning for like a launch in June because it'll be like our 1-year library anniversary. And I mentioned earlier, I'm thinking about what are these series that we might pitch and market? Like what are some of those? But if I want to change how the social sector feels and I want it to actually feel easier, it's not just with the consulting practice. Like we need to be reaching lots of people and like changing the nature of it. And I don't know what that looks like yet. And I don't both know what it looks like from which of the things are we going to choose to do, which ones are going to work, and which ones are we going to like? Because I think part of this work to me is spending time in ways I enjoy. And so I don't like social media. I don't engage. I don't have it. So I do a little LinkedIn, but like that's not going to be our path, right? So that feels tricky. I think we'll figure it out, but I don't think it's a known path yet. I think we're going to pick and pull from different things that exist and build our own. And that takes time to do and energy, which leads to the second one, which is I we're still in a place where like I intentionally want to stay small. I want to stay responsive. I want to stay in this place. And it is really hard to do the amount of sales, the amount of support services, the amount of thinking about the market, like all of those different pieces, and I know we're in a world of automation at this point in time, but even when I try to automate like our billing every month, it's not done the way I want it done, right? Like there's that personal touch piece and figuring out what that's going to look like in a way that is contributing to the world I want to live in and is a way I want to do it. And all of those pieces in between feels like this morning that felt very tricky. And here we are.
And I feel there is even a conflict between the two challenges. One is like, we want to go big. And the other one is like, we want to stay small. And I feel if I had to like translate in my own words here, it's like, you want to keep the quality and proximity of the small aspect of the business, but also go big in the sense of helping and having the impact that the organizations and institutions can have, which is a hard mix. But I mean, I'm sure some people achieve it, and I have no doubt that you will as well, Jess.
We'll figure it out. Just note, I listened to a really beautiful conversation between Tim Ferriss and Jim Collins, who are not humans that I generally follow necessarily, but the conversation that they had on Tim Ferriss's podcast was wonderful. And one of the things in there they talk about is, your scale of impact is not based on the size that you have. And there's different ways of doing that. And I think that's a really grounding piece, right? And I think both of them have very small teams and drive really big impact. And I think there's like kind of ways of thinking about that, I think in our world, we celebrate big, right? We celebrate big, 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 and all the different things. And in my experience, including the orgs that we get to work with and the business I built and those things, there's something really magical about small that drives impact. And I want to embrace it. I don't know what it will look like yet, but we'll figure it out.
I would love that for you, Jess. Again, I'm sure you're going to figure it out. So I'm going to ask you the other side of the coin as well. What's a big opportunity that you see that you look forward to walk in your business or even in the industry as a whole?
Yeah, I love that question. I just think the world is changing so much, right? I think like everything is shifting and changing, and we're all trying to figure out what to do about it. Yeah. And I think what a beautiful opportunity to just do things differently, right? To think about where are we now and where do we want to be and what do we want that to look like? And I don't know, I think moments of disruption are some of the most beautiful for creation. And it feels like that's where we are. And I think I want to change kind of the values of how we are showing up in social sector work, right? I want it to be collective versus individual. I want it to be generous versus like holding, and I want it to be filled with a lot of ease, because I think things are hard, but the stuff that we make hard does not need to be as hard as it is. Like it does not need to be this hard to have a conversation with someone where they're not meeting expectations. There is a script. There's a way to do that can feel good on all sides, right? And I think it does not need to be this hard to like, you run a pipeline. That's what you do. And so we try to complicate it with all these different things and all these things, but really it's just you build a good pipeline and you build relationships with people. That's the foundation of almost anything you're driving towards. And so, yeah, I just think we're in a moment in time where we can. So why not?
Jess Skylar from Helia, ladies and gentlemen. Jess, if people want to find out more about you, see what you do, where should they go?
Yeah, we are in a soft launch of our new website, so you can check that out at theheliacollective.com, or you can follow me on LinkedIn, Jess Skylar.
What's the name of the newsletter on LinkedIn?
The newsletter is actually, you can subscribe to it on our website, so theheliacollective.com.
Perfect.
There's the subscribe button on the right, and we'll have the official launch of our website in a couple months, but all the good stuff is there, so check it out.
We'll put all the links in the description. For what I'm concerned, I can say for sure that you'll gain at least one new subscriber / connection on LinkedIn out of this interview, Jess. Me, I just added you.
I'll take it.
Thank you so much for coming on Consulting Leaders.
Thank you for making this space. It was a pleasure.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Consulting Leaders Podcast. We hope you learned valuable lessons on how to grow your practice and take your business to the next level. Make sure to subscribe and leave us a review wherever you're listening to this show so you never miss an episode. To apply and be a guest on the show, click the link in the description. See you next time.